Pu'u. I'll be facilitating this virtual huaka'i today, along with April Atisanoi. Hopefully you're in the right place. This is the virtual huaka'i for Kohala, the Kohala Center with Kaʻiana Runnels. No, I'm so excited to be a part of this presentation and to learn alongside you folks from Kaʻiana. Just meeting with him a couple times before, you can feel the passion that he has for what he does and the Aina that he works on. And so without further ado, we want to give him as much time as possible to share. I'd like to introduce Kaʻiana Runnels. Mahalo, e palala, no, ko manawa.
E mahalo. Au Kaʻiana Runnels, noho au makamoku puni o moku ke awe, ma kia manawa I ka ahu pua'a o Kihalani, ma lau pahoihoi. I'm super mahalo for this opportunity to talk story with everybody. I wanna start by just really acknowledging that anything I shared today has not come necessarily from me, but from our Kūpuna and an amazing kumu and Kūpuna who have hanai'd me and just freely shared this ike with me. So everything I share with you today is I want to make sure you know it's not mine, and so I'm grateful to have this ike and share some. One of the things that I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through a quick, hopefully quick PowerPoint about some programming I do, but more importantly about Haloa, Call of Varieties, Alba varieties, and the importance that those plants play in our lahui today and where we see it going in the future. And then I want to just get questions going because that will kind of guide the ono of this conversation. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. The title of this presentation is Ōhāhā, and that's also the name that I named our program for our youth and now for adults and for families. And I want to go into the definition of it in a little bit, but first I want you to just watch this brief video that we filmed a little while ago. It explains what we do. O ke ala nu'ukia o ko ke Kohala Center Ōhāhā High School Agriculture Program, oia ka hanai pono ana aku I ka hanauna mahi aiho. Pai komo mākou I nā haumana mai Kohala a hiki loa I puna. A ho'onu'u I nā auna haumana I loko ka ike Kūpuna, nā mo'olelo, nā wahipana, a me ko lākou mau mo'oku auhau. Ho'opili mākou I nā opio me nā mea Hawai'i. E like me ka pule, ke oli, ka lo'i kalo, ka loko i'a, ke ku'i kalo, ke kūkū kapa, ka la'au lapa'au, ka ai pono, a pēlā wale atu. Ko mākou I ʻini ho'i, oia ka ho'opa'a ana iho nā haumana I ko lākou maoli, I oi aku ka hohonu o ko lākou ike, no ko lākou kule ana I kia aina, I ka ʻohana, a I ka lāhui ma ka pau ana o kia papahana, he ho'okahi pule kona lō'ihi. ʻōhāhā kahi e māhuahua pua e ai ka ʻaina a me ke kanaka I ola kākou a pali. Okay. So I wanted to hop into what Ōhāhā means and the reason why we named our program Ōhāhā. Ōhāhā is, just to kind of create the imagery of it for you, we have this kalo plant here. And Ōhāhā is essentially a state of thriving, of flourishing. And what we really want for these youth that we bring in especially is to give them a solid kahua, a solid foundation, and to deepen their roots into the Aina so that they can flourish in life. And we give them, you know, we use kalo and ʻawa and wala and ulu and all of our Kūpuna crops as that palu, that bait that hooks them to get on this journey. Ōhāhā, that word ʻōhā is the root term for ʻohana, right? ʻohana. So ʻōhāhā is like this kalo plant that is just filled with so many ʻōhā and just at a thriving state. So that's why I wanted to kind of give you this imagery. This is our farm at Namoku, what people call Honoka'a today. It's just down the road from where we live, and it is owned by Kamehameha School's land. It's a KS lease, but the Kohala Center, we run all of our programs and our farms out of here. And this is where we keep the collection of kalo varieties that I've both collected and inherited. And this is where we do the education for our students as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about the kalo varieties while I play this little video for you. And I'm going to see, hopefully it can mute the video. What we're looking at here is every plate you see on the fence is a different variety of kalo. And this was from our kalo huki day last month. And each one of these varieties has its own story. It has its own traits. Just like you and I, we have our own traits, right? I have dark brown hair, dark brown eyes. Each kalo has their own traits as well and their own story about where they came from, where they like to grow. Each name holds so much knowledge in it, and we'll break down a few of the names in a little bit. But it's so important to know your variety of food that you're growing, because that variety name will tell you everything you need to know about harvest time, when the best time to plant is, what it likes to eat while it's in the ground, and so forth. So each one of these plates is its own Hawaiian variety in this section, and then in a little bit we'll move into, as we go down the fence line of kalo varieties, we'll move into varieties from the South Pacific, from Tahiti, from Tonga, from Samoa, from Niue, from Palau, and so forth. And then all the way up through Asia, we hold kalo varieties from China and Japan. And so we really try to share these varieties with the community. You can tell that some of the plates here are still empty, and that's because this wasn't taken at the end of the huki day, this video here, but we're still grateful to have it, just to kind of give you the scope of what our Kūpuna left for us. All of these varieties were created and almost handcrafted by our Kūpuna to survive very particular environments. Yeah, so something like a variety from that arrives from Kahiki would be planted on the shoreline, and it would evolve to be adapted to be able to withstand that salt air and that salt wind and the mist of the ocean. And then they would take that same variety and they would go plant it maybe up in Ōla'a, Big Island, where it's real rainy and cloudy and misty, and that kalo variety starts to grow taller, stretching for the sun. And then that, over time, becomes its own variety. It becomes its own, morphologically, it somatically mutates into its own cultivar. And then from there, they can take that same kalo plant and they can go plant it in Ka'u, in the desert. And it becomes its own variety that's heat and drought tolerant. And then from there, they'll take it up to maybe Kohala, where it's real windy. It whips up the Kohala mountains. And again, it will adapt. It'll become shorter, stockier, and it'll be its own variety there. And so, while there's definitely evidence that our Kūpuna hybridized kalo, we believe for the most part that all of our kalo varieties have come through somatic mutation, or kahuli. And so that's what we want to talk about today. First and foremost, I want to honor one of my main kumu, Anakala Jerry Kononui. This is a photo taken of us at his house and in Pahoa. And I wanted to emphasize the power of multi-generational knowledge. Uncle Jerry had a unbroken chain of ike that was passed down from all of his Kūpuna about kalo, as well as many other plants too. And Anakala Jerry didn't have any sons. He had daughters, and they're awesome, but they weren't as into the kalo varieties at the time. And so luckily, he was able to pass ike on to a lot of students. And we have this little hui of people who Uncle Jerry has taught. Nick Kalamakani Francisco is one of them, and I've learned a lot from him as well. And the power of this program, Ōhāhā, is now we're able to take that ike from Anakala and pass it down to the next generation. This is his grandson, Hayden Kononui, here on the papa with me. And we're able to just share that knowledge, but also keep that chain intact of that kalo relevant knowledge in his own family. We have shifted from teaching youth this year only to teaching adults to grow food, since this is kind of the first year that some adults might have time, especially like during the layoffs and things like that. We found that people were very interested in growing food. And so our next program is coming up tomorrow, where we bring people to the farm and we educate them, and it is also an online aspect of this. So if you're interested in joining a program like this and you live on Moko Keawe, you can look at the Kohala website, Kohala Center website, to find more info. What I wanted to focus on today is the significance of Hāloa in the family. Everything about Hāloa points to strengthening and building family relationships. From the very birth of Hāloa and the origin story of Kānaka, that we all trace our, if you are Hawaiian, if we all trace our DNA back to Hāloa, we literally are Hāloa because we stem from him genealogically. But we are also Hāloa when we work with Hāloa, when we consume Hāloa. Hāloa literally becomes a part of us. And so the great thing about Hāloa is that it's tough for one person to do it. It's tough for one person to kanu, to malama, make sure there's no weeds, to irrigate, to huki at the right time, to ku'i, and then, boring sit around the kano, around the poibo by yourself. So from planting to harvest, this is one of our harvest days right here, that we had all the families in separate groups. And from planting to harvest to ku'i and to consumption, everything about Hāloa is a family builder and a bonder. Yeah. This is one of the areas where our collection is, or was. We shifted the field just yesterday. This is, right here in this plot, we have over 120 varieties of kalo, and about 70 to 75 of them are from our Kūpuna heirloom Hawaiian kalo varieties, and the rest are from South Pacific up through Asia. This is when it was planted last year, and then this was about 6 months later. This field did really good because we really treated it right. We gave it a lot of organic matter. And you can really see the beauty of these kalo when you get up close to them. From here, from afar, it's tough to see how beautiful the colors and the flavors are. So for kalo, to identify a single kalo plant, the first question I always ask people, they're like, oh, I grow kalo, mai kai. What kalo variety do you grow? Who are you taking care of? Who is the variety that is in your garden? Almost always the reply I get is, well, I grow the green one, or I grow the red one, and that's my kai. But we gotta kind of level that in a little deeper. And so on occasion I'll get someone who says, oh, I grow lehua, and that's my kai too. But there's many varieties of lehua, right? We have lehua ke'o, lehua ele, lehua maoli. We have a maui lehua. We have a lehua that was found on Kauai. We have a piko lehua pi'i. There's so many. There's lehua pala'i'i, and so knowing your variety will tell you everything you need to know about that kalo plant. We have a minimum of 48 descriptors for one kalo plant, including leaf shape, piko color, primary Y vein color, secondary vein color, the ka'elau, the sinus depth, the lobes, are they acute or obtuse, sap color, ha color, inside of ha color. I mean, there's all the way down to the corm, flesh, and root color, and even the lateral roots. What color are they? Sometimes they're bi or tricolored. It's so important to know your kalo variety because they look so different, and each one tastes completely different and has different nutrients as well. What I wanted to do is move into specific cultivars. These are some posters I made a while ago that are really bad pictures of it because I took them this morning. I pulled out the posters and took these this morning. I hope you can see a little bit of what's on here. What you're seeing is that our Kūpuna broke our kalo into families. Again, everything around Hālaoa centers around families. And each family has very specific morphological traits that are associated to that family. And what's great is that our Kūpuna put these families together, and then later on as we get down the road, people at UH decided to DNA sequence our kalo varieties, which a little bit of it was problematic, but what was really cool about it is that it showed that these families lined up morphologically according to their DNA SNPs in the same families as our Kūpuna had put them in prior. So again, it's that really cool thing we see happen all the time where, you know, Western science is slowly catching up to verify Ike Kūpuna, and it never will, but it's slowly catching on, and it's a really cool thing to see. Here we have our mana family of kalo, and the reason it gets its word mana is because of this corm right here, where you have one i'o, but multiple fingers or ha coming off that one i'o, kind of like your hand. And so the mana varieties all have the potential to do this, where it has a corm and then multiple ha coming off the corm. And then the second name attached to it is typically giving you a hint as to either what it was used for, or another morphological trait, or where it likes to grow. So mana opelu. Yeah, the story of the mana opelu, you can talk to Uncle Chucky down in South Ka'u and all of the opelu fishermen down there. And this is the variety they use to hanai the opelu. And they hanai the opelu so often with mana opelu that when they go out to feed the opelu, they don't go out to fish. They don't call it fishing. They just throw the palu in the water and the opelu come. And there are stories of those Kūpuna going out in their va'a, and when they actually go with the intent to catch opelu, they don't have to fish because the opelu will jump right into their va'a, and then they can just paddle in. And that's the kind of reciprocity, this relationship they had with the i'a, and that's the same reciprocity we need to have with Hālaoa. Mana ulu also gets its name from mana because it can have multiple ha off one corm, and on occasion it can also do a single here. But ulu because of the breadfruit, yeah. The poi from this kalo is, it really looks like when you make poi ulu. It has a real yellow color, and it's one of 4 kalo in Hawaii that make yellow poi. Mana ulu and mana opelu, along with mana veil and mana uli uli, all make yellow poi. Yeah, and mana loloa because it's a mana, but it also is supposed to have a long leaf. Yeah, our piko ʻōhāhā. I'm going to try to pick up the speed here so we can get through this. Our piko ʻōhāhā is a really unique ʻōhāhā because all of the leaves, the sinus cuts down straight to the piko. Yeah? And what you'll notice is that when the winds get real heavy, the first thing to tear on your kalo is this sinus right here. And over time, as the wind keeps whipping that leaf, the kalo just says, okay, I give up. It's better to morph and become a kalo that has this cut to the sinus than to keep tearing. And so that becomes a kahuli, or a somatic mutation. And over time, these varieties have become real rigid. On the back of the ha, there's a real sharp stem, kind of like a ridge that holds the leaf real pa'a in the when that makani nui comes, it holds itself real rigid, yeah, against the wind. And the picos are ono. We have our ula ula family, which is kind of a step family we shoved together because, you know, in Wakahiko, having probably well over 300 cultivars of kalo, now we only have 3 of the ula ulas left. Whereas maybe Kumu might have been its own family and Poni was its own family. Now we have to smash them together. Same with the ele'eles, because we don't have many of them left. So ula ula kumu, like the fish, it's a red color with this white stripe. Like if you ever go lu'u and you catch a kumu, it has that white stripe, and so the kalo does too. Ula ula moano. Something that's really nice about this variety is we have the names from the different islands. Each island often had different names for the same variety. And so on Hawaii Island, we call it ula ula moano, but if you go to Maui, they'll call it ahu ula. And if you go to Kauai, they'll call it ie ie, and so forth. So it's important that we listen for these names as our kupuna speak. Yeah? Ula ula poni was traditionally used as a dye for kapa. My sister-in-law makes beautiful kapa with this dye of all different shades by boiling the ha, and then really boiling it down to concentrate it to make almost like a thick paste, and then she dyes her kapa with that. These two ele'eles are in a family we call the Royal Reds, because if you look at the ilikana here, it has a real lilac color, and it makes a red poi. The term Royal Red is not a traditional name, we just give it that because it's in a family that makes red poi. Our manini family all have stripes like the manini fish, and was often used as offerings to appease the akua after maybe you did something that wasn't too good. Yeah, but they're super ono. I really love the manini family. They get real tall in my mala, and sometimes I won't plant them next to some of the other varieties because they can kind of shade them out. Same with the lauloa family. These are just a few of our lauloas. We have so many lauloas around, but lauloa ke'o was one that was traditionally used a lot for medicine. All of our lauloas, Anakala Jerry used to refer to as poor man's poi. And I never fully understood why he referred to it as poor man's poi. But one day we harvested, I think it was lauloa ele o ma'o. And we ku'id it and we filled our kanoa at the house. And the kids ate all the poi down to maybe half the kanoa. And when we came back in the morning, the poi bowl was full again. And I was like, whoa, how did that happen? And then it hit me that Anakala Jerry used to always call the lauloa family poor man's poi, and that's because the poi bowl refills itself at night. Because this variety, it ferments real fast that he hu at night, and he refill your poi bowl. Yeah, so the lauloa family is also ono for kulolo. I really like that variety for kulolo. These are some really cool, just kind of random ones that I don't really have a family for. But Aveu is one you'll often find in the forest. It has little stolons, little runners. Yeah, and so really, people say they don't like the flavor, but I love the flavor of Aveu. Elepao hauliuli, moikea, nihopu'u, pololu. Pololu is not a traditional name for this cultivar, but it was discovered in Pololu, and it doesn't match any of the descriptors that we have. So it was named after the place that it was discovered. Yeah, same with Kalalao. These are kind of what we're loosely calling Royal Reds, and these are just a few of them in the family. Lehua Pala'i'i, O'opukai, Lehua Maoli, Pi'iali'i. There's also Pico Ula Ula in this family, and a lot of others. We think there's around 10, not including hybrids like Maui Lehua. But this is so ono. Pi'iali'i is a special one. We know for sure Pi'iali'i and possibly Maui Lehua were Kapuali'i. So commoners could grow it, but only the ali'i could consume it. And sometimes people would try to trick the ali'i by, maybe growing apo wale and then scraping the ilikana, or this dark layer. After you cook, they scrape it and they mix it in. But the ali'i could most often tell, and that was not something you wanted to do, is make an imperfect poi for an ali'i, because there were heiau for those kinds of things. Yeah, and it was a heavy kuleana to ku'i for ali'i. These are our lau, a PE family where it has like a real crinkled lau. Apo Vale and Pa'akai not as much, but you can still see the crinkles in the lau. And then you have the real dramatic ones like Apu and Apuai that sit real low and they catch all the vai. Yeah, and this vai was really, really special. I've heard Kūpuna refer to it as the vai ha'ule ole, or the water that has not yet touched the earth or fallen to the earth. And it was used for really potent la'au. Because the water was so sacred. Yeah. Again, we have just so many varieties. I'm not going to even touch on even a handful of them. But Elepao Hakea, it got its name according to Bulletin 84 from the white spots under the Oahu elepaio bird. But one of our good friends who also presented today, his name is Kaipo'i, he vehed that even more when he talked about elepaio as the Milky Way. And when you hold this lau up to the sky on a dark night, these white spots on the lau perfectly mirror the Milky Way, yeah? Or the elepaio and the lani. And so really beautiful. This one also has nice stripes. Lihi Lihi Molina is our only bicolored crescent kalo. And it has this little lihi lihi, this little eyelash in the corn as you cut it. Queen Emma was very fond of this kalo. She wrote a lot about it in her diary that is preserved at the Bishop Museum. Wahia pele is a real special one. It has this smoky gray leaf. If you're looking at it when the sun is either rising or the sun is setting, you can really see how it got that name Wahia pele. And I have a picture of it later on. But we also know that it has a smoky gray color to the poi. And sometimes even when we don't cook it in the imu, we just steam it, it has a nice smoky flavor. So again, our Kūpuna laid all these layers of kauna into it. And what's amazing that we found out about kalo, not necessarily Wahia pele only, but what we found out about kalo in general is that when Tutu Pele visited Puna a couple years, 3 years or so ago, Kala was actually growing kalo in his mala. And the hapu'u, the ulu, I mean, everything just completely died from the SO2 exposure, but the kalo were thriving. And so there's this aspect of Wahia pele that also has this SO2 resistance to it, yeah, that it can withstand the sulfur dioxide. And so all of these layers, yeah, kind of line up to give you that fuller picture of how important it is when you name something that you layer it with that kauna. These are just some kahuli, some really cool things that occur with kalo that don't always stay, but that we've seen. Something as simple as changing of the colors, or double leaves on one ha, or these little variegations that occur in the lau, or an entire complete change, like the elepaio ha kia, which typically looks like that, but instead takes on an all-white variant. Yeah, the ha is completely white with this little green lihi. This is that Wahia pele. If you're standing at Halima'u, especially now because the pele came back, and you're looking up at the sky midday when the sun's right behind the smoke, this is what the sky looks like right here in the middle of this leaf. The sky looks exactly like this as that smoke fills the sky and the sun peeks through the back of it. That's how this kalo got its name. Yeah? We're going to run through ʻawa now. There are a lot of mo'olelo about ʻawa, especially with the origins of how it came here. And what's great about all of these origins is that they're all true. You know, I especially love the ones about Kane and Kanaloa. I love that. I love this story about ʻawa being used on Kauai as a fishing plant, because my brother-in-law is a lawai'a and he throws net, and he swears to me that the mornings he goes to catch fish after the night before he had some ʻawa, the fish come closer to him. I'm not sure if like the ʻawa kind of mask the scent or whatever it might be in the water, but he swears that the fish come closer, they come up to him after he knows ʻawa. So ʻawa is a mahi ai's and a lawai'a's best friend, mainly for the muscle healing aspect too. Yeah. There's 7 main descriptors for when you're identifying ʻawa. There are the overall stance. So this is a real tall hiva. There's a kind of a mid, little bit sprawled out stance that we call a normal stance with mo'i. And then there's a real prostrate stance where the ʻawa kind of creeps on the floor like our papas, the papa kea, the papa ele'ele, the papa ele'ele pu'upu'u, and ʻawa panaewa on occasion will also crawl. These are some of the different variations of ʻawa that we have in Hawaii. We definitely don't have as many as our kalo, but there are some ono and unique varieties of ʻawa. Internode configuration, you want to look that this is a node, and this section between is called an internode, and they all look very unique. Pico color, leaf shape, we have all kinds of things that help you to determine what ʻawa variety you're growing. And again, in Hawaii, variety matters, because every ʻawa variety affects everyone differently. So knowing what ʻawa variety is right for you is important. Yeah. Here are our varieties that we still have in existence in Hawaii today. We have many more names for ʻawa varieties, but these are the only ones we have. And a lot of these names, like Hanakopi, Honokaneiki, Mapulehu, Opihikau, Panaewa, these are not traditional names for these varieties. They're just named after the location that they were rediscovered, yeah? Here's Hanakopi, gorgeous, gorgeous. One of the most pretty stalks, in my opinion. This one is real ono, real smooth flavor. And then I have the variant names here. Yeah, Nene Ele Ele is what some Kūpuna call it. Look at that, that's beautiful. Hiva is an important one ceremonially in Hawaii. Hiva and Mo'i, they're our darkest ʻawa varieties. This was often used as the offering to pēlā at the lua pēlā. It gets real dark black. It's a real nani one. Right now at my farm, the hiva is growing up in the trees. I mean, it's gone. It's grown so high. Honokaneiki, again, not a traditional name for this cultivar, but named after one of the places it was discovered. Kumakua. A lot of the ʻawa that was discovered in Puna. So I'm lucky to be able to live so close to there. Mahakea. This is probably one of the most common varieties in Hawaii today. I see it in a lot of places. It's not my favorite. On occasion, when it's real potent, it gives me kind of a headache. People love Mahakea. Mapulehu, also found on Molokai, real tall. Mo'i. This was related to, when you read Handy, he talked about it being like the honua ula sugarcane. So I took a picture of the honua ula color of our coal. And then it does. You can see it in the same coloration of the mo'i. Nene. Nene is a really important kalo for our kamali'i, our kids. If my kids take a really late nap, say at like 4 or 5 o'clock, I'll give them an apu of nene, and they'll go to bed on time. You know, it really helps them to relax. If your kid is, it has the potential for like, they call it ADHD. This is a great alternative treatment than giving them prescription drugs, yeah? Using our traditional things that we use. A lot of Kūpuna, including Tutu Pukui, talked about the nene, how it cures the fretful child, yeah? We'll talk a little bit about why nene is important too. This is Opihikau. This is one of Uncle Jerry's legacies as well. This is a variety that he found in Opihikau, and luckily when he found it, he took a cutting of it and he took it home, because when he went back a few months later, that someone had come and harvested it all and they didn't replant. So had he not found it and saved it, we wouldn't have this delicious variety with us today. Yeah? Panaewa, the Kūpuna in Panaewa named it Panaewa because no one could find what variety it matched with the best. And so this is a very delicious ʻawa too. Grows kind of low to the ground. Papa ele ele pu'u pu'u is one that we use for bladder infection. I use it a lot for headache too. Whenever I have a headache, I'll either take apu of papa ele ele pu'u pu'u or papakea or mo'i, and it's much more effective than Tylenol and Advil and all of those drugs. Yeah. Papa ele ele, very similar to lu'ukia. We can't tell if they're the same variety or not. But lu'ukia was found in Waipi'o in the Queen's ʻawa patch and was brought out of there, and it looks very similar to papa ele ele. And papakea. Papakea is the ʻawa that really helped me, especially in college, to focus. I definitely had ADHD, and instead of taking the drug medicines that the doctors prescribed, papakea, I could take a few apus of that and start my research paper. And by the time, the kano was pau, my 30-page paper was pau too, and it was like the best I ever wrote. And so it's a real good one to get you in the zone. If you're doing research projects, if you just need to focus, I love this variety for that. We got to be aware that there are other varieties of ʻawa in Hawaii that you can drink and some that are poisonous to you. So other two-day varieties that we call two-day, because the effects, especially the negative effects, will last more than 2 days. You wake up feeling groggy. So we call them two-day varieties. They're like Isa and Evie. ʻawa bars sell them as Rhino Dart and all kinds of ridiculous names. It is not like our Hawaiian ʻawa. It contains a component in it called flavocavin B, which Dr. LeBeau theorizes might be bad for your liver. And so we really caution people to stay away from this. This is the one that most often you'll find in the stores. And people like it because it kind of gives you this almost like in drunken state. But I am an advocate for the Hawaiian ʻawa varieties that give you clarity, that don't blur your thinking or anything like that. It gives you clarity, it connects you to Kūpuna, and it really grounds you. I like to relate it to like when I was into alcohol and stuff like that. Like, if kids were to come around and be like, oh, get away, drinking over here. But ever since I got off of alcohol and onto ʻawa, which was a long time ago, instead of chasing the kids away, I can drink the ʻawa and sit down and read to my kids, or say, hey, how was your day? Or do a puzzle with them. And although we shouldn't need that to be like that, it does help after a long day just to ho'onanea a little bit and to get in that zone. This is some acetone testing I did to see the clarity and the purity of ʻawa. So this is why ʻawa nene is the one we give to our kids, is because it's the purest out of all the ʻawa varieties. This is some hiva, which is still significantly more pure than this ʻawa that my friend gave me from Aotearoa, and this isa that I tested as well. So super simple. You just put 1/3 of your ʻawa to 2/3 acetone, and you can see the purity of your ʻawa. If there's any imperfections, like if someone in Fiji or Vanuatu mixed in like stems and leaves, it will come out looking more like this or like this. But if it's pure, especially Hawaiian varieties, they'll look like this. This is some isa. This is an invasive ʻawa that a lot of people grow in their yards and have no clue, but it has no carbolactones, and if you drink it, people wonder why their ʻawa is really weak. It's because it's not ʻawa. ʻawa is Piper methysticum, and this is a separate species altogether. Our favorite name for it is fool's gold, because when you drink it, it does nothing. But the worst part about this plant is it's highly invasive. It's taking over valleys. If you drive the road to Hana, you're going to see a whole valley of just this false ʻawa. I see it here in Honoka'a. I see it all over the place. And this is a different species that people call kava from Aotearoa, but it's again not our ʻawa plant. Yeah. We're gonna skip kahuli and traditional propagation. We're gonna just kind of burn through this. This is important. This is a olelo no eau that from Pukui that says he kanaka kamea inu ʻawa, he pua'alaho kamea inu kuaipa. So the Kanaka, or the person who inus ʻawa, remains a person, a human. But the person who drinks kuaipa, which is a transliterated word for like swipe or alcohol, becomes a pua'alaho. And a pua'alaho is a very specific phase of kamapua'a where he kind of gets into his like beast mode, where he's like not acting like a person, but more like a pig. Yeah, really important. I've never been around a kano with people that a fight has ever broken out, yeah, or even an argument has come about, and you contrast that with what you see in the bars, yeah, very different. Some health benefits for ʻawa, you can look at them real quick. We don't have to dive into these right now. There's not enough time, and I want to get to your questions. This is some treatments from Maikumu, Kyoki Baklayan, some things we use the ʻawa for. You learn from Levon Ōhāhā. Some side effects of ʻawa is mahuna, or dry skin. Yeah, it gets kind of flaky. A lot of people refer to it as the cracked bark on the kukui and the ulu tree. And that's if you drink a lot of, especially the dried powdered ʻawa. It is a diuretic, so you have to drink plenty vai. This is bad. The mental lag comes from these 2-day varieties that you buy. Again, our Hawaiian varieties don't give you that mental lag. And never mix it with other alcohol or drugs, or if you're hapai. Yeah. Okay, I want to get to questions. The reason why I show you all this is because, by the way, this is the inside of the ha for mana ele kalo variety. How beautiful is that, yeah? With the veins, we call it the webbing. The reason why I wanted to share this content knowledge about kalo varieties and ʻawa varieties is just to highlight the genius of our Kūpuna and really instill this strong sense of identity of what they've left us and how important it is to perpetuate this. What a sad sight to see when you see a monocropped field or lo'i for acres that is just one variety, right? That's just moi or just maui lehua. When you go to the store, KTA or Oahu has other stores like Times Supermarket, and if they have poi, the only poi you can see is either purple or gray. And if it's purple, it's maui lehua, and if it's gray, it's moi, typically from Kauai. But when issues arise like the phytophthora, the kalo leaf, the leaf blight, it wipes out these fields like crazy because there's no biodiversity. Every kalo is so different, just like Kānaka, that if I were the same as everyone else in this group right here, and I got the corona or a flu or a cold, all of us would get it because our DNA would be exactly the same. But when we're diversified, these things come in like the phytophthora, and maybe one or two of us might catch it. But when your field is mixed up with varieties, it is more able to fight off these diseases and pests. Yeah. Anyway, before we get too crazy, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to take questions from you guys because that's going to be the honor of all of this. So let me stop sharing. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can just unmute and ask.
We do have some in the chat. The first question was where can we get these posters? The posters of the kalo varieties.
That's a good question. If you just email me, I can send them to you. I've never actually made them public. I just use them for teaching the students. Yeah, but feel free to email me and I'll share. That's no problem.
Someone had asked about if Kiki would love to hear these stories. Are there any other books than the Haloa story?
Yeah.
Kalo?
Not for kids per se, no. There are other resources that I can send you, like Bulletin 84. Handy wrote a lot about it in the Hawaiian Planter. Not the native planter, but his prior publication called the Hawaiian Planter. Emerson wrote about it. So there are other resources, but not necessarily for kids, yeah?
Another one is, how can we get access to these ʻawa? As Hawaiians living on the mainland for now, it would be so helpful to find out how to use these for medicine.
There are places you can buy it, like Pu'ohoku Ranch on Molokai will ship fresh frozen ʻawa. That's the Cadillac of ʻawa. You got to drink it fresh. People that drink the powdered stuff is like, oh, it tastes like cardboard. But there are also places like Chris Allen lives up Mountain View, Gourmet Hawaiian Kava, Kānaka Kava Barn, Kona, Lakia Trastem. There are places that sell it, but make sure that you know your farmer and you know your source, because so much tainted ʻawa has gone out, and we got to get back to the pure stuff that our Kūpuna left for us.
Thank you. And how do you prepare ʻawa, and are there different methods for different varieties?
Yeah, not necessarily different varieties, but there's different methods. Traditionally, it was either ground on a rock, on a pohaku that was real porous, and then that was all strained through either a ipu or the a'aniu, the net that you find in the coconut tree, or ahu'ava, the fibers, or the pandanus, the ulehala, the hala tree root, yeah, the fibers in there. But for ali'i, it was mama. It was chewed, and then it was spit into the apu, and then the ali'i would inu that. And the reason why they did it that way was because the saliva extracts different kavalactones than a cold water extraction. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to drink them. And again, every variety, some you'll feel real heavy in your body after a long day's work. Some you'll feel more in your head, and some like hiba, you're going to feel both. And just an overall real relaxing state. Yeah.
Another question is, how do you eat the nene ʻawa for keiki?
Yeah, they can just chew on it, or you can make them, you make your own ʻawa and then just give them a apu. And if any of you need access to these varieties and you live on this island, just come to my farm. But on Oahu, Waimea Valley has some, Kauai has some, Maui Nui Botanical Gardens has some if you live on Maui. Molokai, you can try Pu'ohoku, but I'm not sure who's holding the collection there.
Here's, how can we grow Hawaiian ʻawa in Hawaii to have fresh? Have you thought of partnering with KS Aina to grow and develop?
Could you read the first part of that again?
It says, how can we grow Hawaiian ʻawa in Hawaii?
Okay, so
fresh.
Yeah, ʻawa is one of the most complicated crops I grow. I grow like the sugarcane collection from our Kūpuna, our uala collection, our kalo collection, our maia collection, but the cultivars of ʻawa are the hardest to propagate. It's a really tough plant with a minimum of 2 years invested to even get like a small amount, right? ʻawa lactones max on a plant at 2 years of age. After that, you're just getting bulk, you're getting mass. You're not necessarily getting a more potent ʻawa product. So it's a tough thing to produce because after 2 years, you know, it's a slow return on investment, but there is potential for that. Have I thought of partnering with KS for that? No, because I've never sold a plant or a crop in my life, and I don't plan to, because food and drinks are to give away. It's not for sale. Yeah.
Another question is, where can they get the stock for planting ʻawa?
Yeah, I think I touched on that.
Oh, okay.
on each island. But if you're here, just come see me, no problem. Same with the Call of Varieties. If you ever want huli of a very specific variety, come over and we biosanitize all of the material before we give it out. Yeah.
What are some challenges you guys have faced in developing and running your ʻOhana program, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, so the challenges we face, especially for youth, is with recruitment, is we're fighting things like Fortnite and Instagram, and that's a tough thing to battle with. It's a tough thing to compete with. So what we found really helps is when the kids come to the program, they make their own little clips and videos and post them, and that's like the best recruiting thing. Is like they have so much fun, and then we just let them go talk story with their friends, and that's been the biggest barrier. But we've overcome it by the students doing their own, talk story online. Other than that, yeah, that's got to be the biggest barrier. The biggest blessing has been to watch these kids and families leave our farm with planting material, go home, create their own gardens, and then ho'onui that from there. Just, end up making small family farms on this island. It's been really cool to see how, just when you go everywhere, you throw a little bit of palu, and if someone bites, they really bite, especially with haloa, with ʻawa, with our Kūpuna crops. And so.
Someone wants to know, where is your farm, and if you could talk more about your program, your farming program. I guess that's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah. So if you want the program info, just go to kohalacenter.org and look under Farmer Training Program. Ōhāhā will be there. The deadline is tonight to apply for this cohort, but we have another cohort in March you can apply for. And basically, it's Mahi knowledge. It's how to cultivate food in traditional ways with Ike Kūpuna as our guide. So we teach you how to read and predict weather. We teach you how to traditional planting methods. And then at the end of the program, we give you the planting material that you want or need to grow.
First to your program, what is your main goal for your hamana at the end of each session?
To thrive. Ōhāhā. Identity, a solidified identity, increased food security, and just a strong pride in who they are and who they come from. I know once kids know who they are, you tend to not lose as many of them. Especially with ʻawa, I'm trying to get kids into ʻawa ceremony while they're in high school so that they don't even want to experiment with terrible things like alcohol. That alcohol is a beast, man. Like, I want them to get onto our cultural roots so that they can be rooted. But the thing I tell people is the more we consume our roots, the more deeply rooted we become. The more we are consuming the roots like kalo, and then we inu our ʻawa, it really does strengthen ourselves in the process. Before we end, I have to give a shout out. My Hanai mom is on here under Roy Matamozo, and so I just want to give a shout out to her. I didn't even know she was on. Mahalo. I appreciate it. All of you have an open invitation to our farm. We're in Namoku in Honoka'a. Well, better you email me. I'll give you directions because there's not a real address to the farm. Yeah, come by and we have big hooky days, and you take home food and yeah, it's good fun.
They're also asking if you could go to Waiwai and share your ike.
Oh, I can lead you to people on Oahu who are way more experienced than me. We have a little hui of kalo people who I look up to all of them. People like Kaipo'i Keling, Duffy Chang, Kiahi Thomas, Nick Francisco, the Ponanuis. There's just so many people that we could lead you to that more better they go on Oahu. Yeah.
She wants to learn more about different medicines used for ʻawa. Is there a source that she could go to? Is there a source?
Yeah, there's a book that Dr. Vincent LeBeau wrote called Kava, the Great Elixir, or the Great Pacific Elixir. That has some stuff in it, but if you're looking for content knowledge specific to Hawaii, I just recommend you go and you take a La'au class, because a lot of the content that I have for medicine with regards to ʻawa has come from my kumu. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you for coming in. I know it's probably been a long day for you all. So mahalo for spending time, and sorry I had to blitz through that. I wish we had more time to talk story, but yeah, if you ever have questions, my email, take a quick picture. This is not my phone number. This is for our main office, but you can get a hold of me through there.
Mahalo hoe Kaʻiana. I think you just be makokau, because from the looks of the chat, it seems like you're gonna get a lot of emails coming your way.
Okay.
And if you do have a chance, check out the chat. There's just a lot of people that want to mahalo your ike. So impressed by what you know, and so thankful for all that you're sharing, including myself. Mahalo nui. Want to say mahalo to everybody. Feel free to turn on your camera to give a round of applause or a wave of aloha to Kaʻiana before we close out the session.